अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। रूहानी मजलिस अनाउंसमेंट। मोमिनीन आजनी मजलिस अमीर अली भाई वालजी तरफ थी। तेमना मरूम पिताजी मोहम्मद अली भाई वालजी, मरूमा माताजी ज़ैनब भाई मोहम्मद अली वालजी, मरूमा कनीज़ फ़ातिमा मोहम्मद अली वालजी, मरूम मोहसिन भाई मोहम्मद अली वालजी तथा कुल मरूमीन इसाले साहब अर्थे राखवामां आवेल छे। તેમજ આજની મજલિસ બંદે ખુદા તરફથી મરૂમ અલીભાઈ રજબ અલી પ્રધાન, મરૂમ હસન અલીભાઈ ગુલામ અલી જીવન, મરૂમા ફાતમાભાઈ હસન અલી જીવન, મરૂમ શૌકત અલીભાઈ પંજવાની, મરૂમા પરીનભાઈ મુસ્તફા પંજવાની, મરૂમ ઇમરાન હુસૈન પંજવાની તથા કુલ મરૂમીના ઇસાલે સાહબ અર્થે રાખવામાં આવેલ છે। સર્વેને દરખાસ્ત કરવામાં આવે છે કુલ મરૂમીના ઇસાલે સાહબ અર્થે એક સૂરે ફાતિહા। الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودأك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودأك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث صدق الله العلي العظيم الفاتحة برآن علي أولاد علي بوازي بلند صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم जब याद सकीना को तेरी आती है बाबा जब याद सकीना को तेरी आती है बाबा سرزندگی دیوار سے ٹکراتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، کانوں سے ٹپکتا ہے لہو، شانوں پہ دیکھو، ظالم کی اذیت، ظالم کی اذیت مجھے تڑپاتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، دربار یزیدی میں بلا کیسے میں جاؤں، دربار یزیدی میں بلا کیسے میں جاؤں، یہ چاک گریبان، یہ چاک گریبان حیا آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، جلتے ہوئے خیموں کے نظارے ہیں نظر میں، یہ بات خیالوں سے، یہ بات خیالوں سے کہاں جاتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی مانگوں گی پانی، مر جاؤں گی پیاسی نہ کبھی مانگوں گی پانی، اصغر کی مجھے پیاس، اصغر کی مجھے پیاس جو یاد آتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، یاد آتی ہے جب شمر کے وہ ظلم تصدق، یاد آتی ہے جب شمر کی وہ ظلم تصدق، یہ ننھی سی دکھتر، یہ ننھی سی دکھتر تیری گھبراتی ہے بابا، جب یاد سکینہ کو تیری آتی ہے بابا، جب تک تیرے سینے سے نہ لگ جائے سکینہ، जब तक तेरे सीने से न लाग जाए सकीना जिंदा में उसे नींद, जिंदा में उसे नींद कहाँ आती है बाबा। जब याद सकीना को तेरी आती है बाबा। सर जिंदगी दीवार से टकराती है बाबा। जब याद सकीना को तेरी आती है बाबा। मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलवात वहुम्मा सल्लि अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद।
بر محمد وآل محمد بلندتر صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد. ہائے بابا 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 اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اب موت مانگتی ہے، اب موت مانگتی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، سونا نصیب ہے نا آتی ہے نیند مجھ کو، ارے 40 دن ہوئے ہیں زینب پھوپھی سے پوچھو، دن رات جاگتی ہے، دن رات جاگتی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے، زندان کا اندھیرا اب ہے میرا مقدر، ارے پانی تو کیا ہوا بھی مجھ کو نہیں میسر، گھٹ گھٹ کے مر رہی ہے، گھٹ گھٹ کے مر رہی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، ایک وقت آیا جب میں بچھڑی تھی قافلے سے، ارے پھر مجھ کو قافلے تک لایا تھا شمر کیسے، وہ صرف جانتی ہے، وہ صرف جانتی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ، اور دادی کی طرح مجھ کو لوٹا دیا ہے خالی، ارے پھیلا کے اپنا دامن اور بن کے ایک سوالی سر مانگتی رہی ہے، سر مانگتی رہی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ اور لے جاؤ مجھ کو بابا لے جاؤ مجھ کو بابا آئی صدائے محسن اب ہر طرف قضا ہے جینا نہیں ہے ممکن بس سانس لے رہی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ اتنی تھکی ہوئی ہے بابا تیری سکینہ بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات اللہم صلی علی محمد وآل محمد
إلا بالله العلي العظيم حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل نعم المولى ونعم النصير ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين سيما أولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم ملعونين أما بعد all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who's Rahman, the one who's Rahim, the one that has allowed us opportunity to sit in the remembrance of Abdullah. 30 days, or the 30th is marked tonight, from the day of Ashura or from the 1st of Muharram. There's a question that I need to ask myself, and that is, am I the same person I was on the 1st of Muharram? It's a question that I ask wherever I go, because the whole point of Karbala, the whole reason for Abdullah to go to Karbala was Islah. He says himself, وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّتِ جَدِّي, that I, Hussein, have come out in order to seek reform in the ummah of my grandfather. All the way from Karbala, from Medina to Karbala, Abdullah is speaking about reformation. He's speaking about the journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I need to ask myself, all of these nights of mourning, all of these nights of tears and azar, what have I changed within myself? What is there that I can say that this time last year, I had this problem, but now since the 1st of Muharram, I've actively tried to remove that defect from myself, and now sitting here on the 30th, I can say that there is something that I've changed. The whole point, as I said, was to get towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in these days of COVID, where we're all stuck at home and day by day the news becomes grimmer and grimmer, there's two things that a person can do. There's one thing that they just sit at home and mope about the situation that they're in, that they're unable to go to the masjid, they're unable to go about their daily lives. Or then the second thing is that they utilize this opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it says tawfiq min Allah. Everything that we have is a tawfiq for the believer. For some, this becomes part of the makr of Allah. Those that were always anti-majlis of Abu Abdullah now have the perfect excuse. And so now the makr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has manifest for them. Because now before, where they felt some sense of responsibility having to go because people would question whether or not they were coming, now they have the perfect excuse. And this is the makr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, makru wa makr Allah wallahu khayrul makirin, that they plan and Allah plans. For so many years they became anti-Azar. For so many years they were against the majlis of Abu Abdullah, but would only come to show face or save face. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has begun to sieve those that were true Husseinis from those that were just putting on an act. See, those that were true Husseinis, regardless of where they are, where they're sat, if they have to sit at home alone, they will still mourn Abu Abdullah in the same way that they would have mourned him had they been in the masjid. Every home becomes a Husseiniya. Every home becomes a Azakhana. But those that were always against these majalis, always against these mahafil, now have a perfect excuse. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens those paths for them to slowly but surely carry on away from this path. So even these days, for the believers, a tawfiq min Allah, that they are alone. A lot of the distractions that they had pre-COVID, a lot of them now are of no, they don't factor into their lives anymore. So now they have an opportunity to look within themselves, to see what is it that they can change so that they can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what Karbala is about. Karbala is the greatest love story ever told. The love story between Abd and Ma'bud, between a servant and his master. Sayyid Shahadat, for the last time when he leaves, Subh Ashur, when he comes out, Ilahi, my Lord, Anta thiqati fi kulli bala. You are my trust in every difficulty. Wa raja'i, and my hope is in you in the face of every sorrow. When he comes just before Asr Ashur, he turns to the women and he says to them, now prepare yourself for bala, for difficulties, for sorrows. But know, through these difficulties, if you are patient, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make your enemies the ones that are downtrodden. He will raise your name, He will honor you, He will make you, these now the end part is my words, He will make you immortal. Your names will live forever as long as you are patient in the face of these bala. And that's exactly what happened. He himself rides out for the last time. Abbas is gone, Ali Akbar is gone, Ali Asghar is gone. He looks towards the heavens. His body with wounds on it. Abu Abdullah had fought a number of times on the day of Ashura, going back and forth, back and forth. Now with these wounds, different blood on his body. The blood of Habib as he sits by him and holds his lifeless body. the blood of Abbas, the blood of his Ali Akbar, the blood of his Qasim, the blood of his Ali Asghar over his body, over his face and beard. He looks towards the heavens. Ilahi taraktul khalqa turran fi hawaka. My Lord, I've left the whole of creation for your sake. Wa itamtul ayala likay araka. And I've orphaned my children so that I may see you. وَإِن قَطَّعْتَنِي بِالْحُبِّ إِرَبًا إِرَبًا. And even if they were to come and cut me to pieces in your love, لِمَا لِلْفُؤَادُ إِلَى السِّوَاكَ, my heart would turn to none but you. Karbala is the greatest love story ever told. What have I done in regards to my journey towards Allah in these days? Allah gave me the perfect opportunity, gave me the perfect excuse. Did I get closer to Him? Did I think, well, that Quran I haven't picked up for a while, I'm going to pick it up and recite it? Or did I think Salatul Layl is something that I've been lacking in? I'll start to pray, I don't have to go to work tomorrow. What is it that I did? I still have an opportunity. How is it that I will utilize this tawfiq, this opportunity from Allah to get closer to Him? This whole journey from Abu Abdullah till the death of Imam al-Hussein, and then the journey of Sayyid al-Sajjad and Sayyid Zainab is all about Allah. When Ibn Ziyad asks, he says, how is it, or what is it that you saw, or how is it that you perceive what Allah did to your brother? She replies to him, مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا. Zainab saw nothing but beauty. Zainab saw nothing but beauty. Where was the beauty that Zainab saw in Karbala? Amongst all of that bloodshed, amongst all of that killing, what beauty is Zainab talking about? She's talking about the faith of those individuals that were willing to give their lives for the sake of their Imam and for the sake of Allah. That there is a young boy coming to his uncle and saying, oh uncle, death to me, ahla min al-asal, that death to me is sweeter than honey. Or he's coming on the day of Ashura and kissing the hands and the feet of his uncle. Lam yazal yuqabbal ar-rajlayhi wa yaday, constantly kissing the feet and the hands of his uncle. Oh uncle, give me permission to go out and fight. Or a young boy who the maqatil don't even name. All he does is come out where the ma'amul was that people would come and introduce himself. This young teenager rides out. People are waiting for him to introduce himself. Instead he comes out and his war poetry is Amiri Husaynun wa ni'mal amir, Sururu Fuad al-Bashir al-Nadhir, علي وفاطمة والدا وهل تعلمون له بالنذير. He says that if you want to know who I am, forget that. Amiri Hussein wa ni'mal amir. Hussein is my master and the best of masters is he. If you want to know who I am, forget me. Ali and Fatima are his parents. And what greater pride is there that he is the son of these individuals, and that for me Hussein is my Amir. This is the beauty Zainab saw in Karbala. Sa'd ibn Abdullah running left to right, taking arrows in his body. When he falls to the ground, Abu Abdullah takes his head, says, Sa'd, is there anything that Hussein can do for you? He looks towards him, he says, yes, Yabna Rasulillah, answer one question. Says, what is it? Awafaytu Yabna Rasulillah? Have I been loyal to you, Yabna Rasulillah? Have I been loyal to you? There's so many different examples that we can go through. But it is enough as an introduction to tonight's lecture that we know that it is about the journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's about reformation within oneself. And so going along this theme, today I've selected a part of a very lengthy tradition from Imam al-Sajjad salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. The tradition is narrated by an individual by the name of Khalid Kabuli. He says that I heard from Imam al-Sajjad. Now, you know, at the start of Dua Kumail, there are a number of sins that we ask Allah to forgive. But we don't exactly name what those sins are. So we say, Allahumma ghfir li adh-dhunub allati tahbisu ad-du'a. Oh Allah, forgive those sins of mine that reject, that turn away my dua. Oh Allah, forgive those sins of mine that bring bala upon me. And so like this, Sayyid al-Sajjad has a lengthy tradition where he speaks about those things that stop a dua of a person being accepted, that bring bala upon a person, that cause a person's enemies to overpower him. And each time when he introduces them, he then lists a number of sins that will have that effect upon a person. I've chosen one particular part, and that is the part where Imam speaks about regret. Especially in the time that we are in now, you know, as things change, I look back. Do I regret? I could have done so much more with my life. I could have done so much more with my journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but did I do it? That regret is there. You know, a person says, I had the opportunity to go on the ziyarat of Imam al-Hussein, but for years I was putting it off. But this year I had made an intention to go 100%. And then COVID hit. Regret. So when Imam speaks about it, Khalid Kabuli, he says, سمعت زين العابدين علي بن الحسين عليه السلام يقول الذنوب التي تورث الندم. Says, and those sins, he says, I heard Zainul Abidin say, and those sins that cause regret within a person are 5. The first, the Imam says, ترك صلة القرابة حتى يستغنوا. Says that cutting off ties with one's family members until the point or to the extent that they no longer feel a need for you. This is the first sin that will bring regret in the life of a person. When they cut off ties with their family members, with their blood relations. Not only does it bring regrets within this dunya, but it also brings huge regret within the akhirah. Within the dunya, you ask those individuals, 2 brothers that never spoke to each other for years. One dies, the one that is still alive, ask him, do you regret not speaking to your brother for so many years? And any normal human being would turn around and say, yes, this was the person I grew up with. That element, that's just a human characteristic. But it's become so easy to cut off ties with our family members that years go by and we do not speak to them over petty things, over small, insignificant things. And there are many effects that are manifest within the dunya upon a person and within the akhirah. When it comes to the ma'nawi side, the spiritual side, it not only affects the individual, but it also affects his community. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam has a narration where he says, Inna al-rahmata la tanzilu ala qawmin fihim qati'ur rahm. He says, surely the rahmah of Allah, the mercy of God, does not descend upon a community that has someone inside them that has cut off relations with his family members. Then he continues, he says, وَإِنَّ الْمَلَائِكَةَ لَا تَنزِلُ عَلَىٰ قَوْمٍ فِيهِمْ قَاطِعُ الرَّحْمِ. He says that there will not come an angel to that nation, to that community that has an individual amongst them that has cut off ties with his family members. It doesn't just apply to the person, to the one single person. No, he says no, the qati' al-rahm, the person that cuts off his family, cuts off relations with his family, does qati' rahim, says that person will affect everyone around him. That's how much of a detested act it is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In another narration, the Holy Prophet says, ثَلَاثُ خِثَالٍ لَا يَمُوتُ صَاحِبُهُنَّ أَبَدًا حَتَّى يَرَى بَالَهُنَّ. Says there are 3 such sins that a person will not die until they see the effects of it within this world. Says the first, al-baghi, dhulm, oppressing someone. Says oppression, they will see the effect of that oppression within this dunya. The second thing is false testimony. And then the third thing, the Ma'soom says, وَقَطِيعَةُ الرَّحِمِ, and the one that cuts off ties with his family members. He will see the effect within the dunya. Within the akhirah, there's a whole different chapter there that we can talk about. But within the dunya, how that effect will be, what that effect is, it will manifest in different ways. But the one that cuts off ties with his family members will most definitely be filled with regret in the dunya and in the akhirah. In the dunya, because he no longer has that support that blood relations bring, and in the akhirah, because there is adhab for the one that cuts off relations with a blood relative. And saying this, I will just add this as within brackets at the end, that to what extent, sometimes we try and bring a family member back. We try and do good by them, but they just don't want to know me. The narration says there's 2 things. Says that as long as within your heart, you don't have that level of hatred for them. So when you see them, you say salam to them. Whether they reply or not, that's up to them. The second is that you should have that level of love for them in your heart, that even if they were to ask you for something small, like a glass of water, you would bring them a glass of water, even though they would rather watch you die thirsty. So that qati' rahim is not, qati' rahim is absolutely not allowed. Imam al-Sajjad says it will bring regret for you in the dunya and in the akhirah. The second thing the Imam says, وَتَرْقُ الصَّلَاةِ حَتَّى يَخْرُجُ وَقْتُهَا, says, and leaving your salah to the extent that it becomes qada, that the time passes. That I delay it till I realize, it's sunset, or it's sunrise, or it's now heading towards, the time of Maghrib. Says anyone who delays their prayers, and I don't need to go over this point anymore, you will have heard for many, many years in the importance of that. There's only one thing that I will mention. Sayyid Ali Qadi, the teacher of Ayatollah Bahjat Alami Tabatabai, many of the great urafat that are currently within this century and those that have just passed away recently, he would say one thing. He would say that if you can find me someone that becomes regular in praying their salah on time, and they do not achieve the ma'arif, the haqa'iq, the realities don't become known to them. That which is unknown to the normal layman becomes known to them, i.e. some of the curtains are lifted in front of their eyes. He says if someone becomes regular in reciting their salah on time and they do not achieve that ability, says come and spit on the face of Qadi. Says that's how much what importance and what effect that has. So later on, people went and they asked Ayatollah Bahjat, said to him that what Sayyid Ali Qadi said, did he mean that a person must pray on time but with full concentration? Ayatollah Bahjat said no. Here the clause wasn't concentration. Said it was that they pray on time. If they pray on time, says, is it better that we delay our prayer and pray with concentration, or pray on time where we're worried about rushing away? He says, no, pray on time, doesn't matter. Pray on time. Says, because when you become regular with that, that's what Sayyid Ali Qadi was saying, Ayatollah Bahjat elaborate. Says that what he was saying was that when you pray on time, regardless of whether your concentration is there or you're thinking about other things, you're rushing, says as long as you're praying on time, you will begin to receive the benefits of it. And slowly but surely, you will begin to get that concentration as well. So the second thing that the Imam says that will bring regret in this dunya and in the akhirah is a person that leaves his salah to the point that it gets qada. The third thing he says, وَتَرْكُ الْوَصِيَّةِ, not writing a will during one's life. And this isn't restricted to any age. Anytime someone reaches the age of taklif, of bulugh, they must write a will, have a will. And there are many adab in the akhirah for people who leave this dunya without leaving a will, because it causes those behind to fight over that which the inheritance that remains. Many narrations. I'll mention two and then we'll move on to the next point. The Imam says, Al-mahrum man hurim al-wasiyya. He says, the one that is deprived of the mercy of God is mahrum, that is deprived of the mercy of God, is the one who deprives himself of writing a will. He doesn't write his will while he is alive, and so he is deprived of the mercy of God. He will have regret. When he enters into that realm, prayed, did fasted, did everything in this dunya, gave charity, did everything good, but didn't write a will, there he will have nadam, regret. Second narration says it is not good for a believer that he sleeps at night except with his will under his head. Doesn't sleep without a will. He makes sure that his will is written and it is with him. And this isn't restricted to only the old people. It's anyone that has reached the age of bulugh, they must have a will written, whatever little they possess. A will must be there, an account of how many qada salah they may have, how many qada fasts they may have, if they owe someone money. And this will be connected to the next point. If they owe someone money, if they're in debt to someone else, all of these things, they note it down. The next thing that the Imam says brings regret in the life of a person is Radd al-Madhalim. Radd al-Madhalim are those things that when a person doesn't repay that which he owes. Yeah? The one that doesn't do Radd al-Madhalim. Imam says that funds that are used, not the Imam, but Radd al-Madhalim are funds that are used to pay off the debts of a person that we may have forgotten or overlooked. So, it may happen that I took a loan off someone, and now for the life of me, I can't remember who lent me that money. And I need to repay it. But I forgot how much it was, I forgot who the person it was. So in that instance, a person goes and he pays Radd al-Madhalim. Or the person who had given me the money has died, I don't know who his waratha'a, all of that. It's Radd. But if I know the person is still alive, I don't know the amount, I should go and try and even if they can't remember, I should pay that person back directly. But Radd al-Madhalim goes even further than that, because the religion is more daqiq than what we look at it as. If you forgot to pay a taxi driver, for example, you know, you got in a taxi and you forgot to pay the taxi driver, they didn't chase you, you walked off, and 2-3 hours later you remembered, and so now that is upon you. Now you're searching for this person, you can't find that person, you have to do the Radd al-Madhalim. You know, pay something towards, pay a charity towards the poor. It has to go towards the poor. It can't go towards a masjid or a Husseini or anything like that. It specifically has to go to the poor. So one example could be I forgot to pay a taxi driver. Another one is someone paid for me and I forgot to repay that person. And now that person has gone on, I don't know who his waratha are. And so in that instance, I will go and do Radd al-Madhalim of what I owed that person. Or as a child, this part is very interesting, that as a child, I took money off someone and I didn't repay it. Or I stole some money from someone as a child. Now that I've reached the age of taklif, the age of bulugh, and I remember what I did, I have to go and pay Radd al-Madhalim. So I go and I find, you know, at times you get permission from your maraji, and the marja you'll say that I need to pay this Radd al-Madhalim, can I pay it to a local poor person? The marja will give you permission. At times there are organizations that have permission to take the money of Radd al-Madhalim. So for example, I was looking earlier, the World Federation website, the COIJ website, they both have a section for Radd al-Madhalim payments. And then in places like Iran and stuff, generally the month of Rabi' is considered to be the month where the maraji, all of them unanimously write a fatwa to say within Rabi' any money up until a certain amount that you have owed to someone else and you don't know who that person is now, or you don't know where they've gone, they may have moved or they may have died, you don't know who their waratha are, their inheritors are, so at that point you can go and pay your Radd al-Madhalim to any of the poor people there that are on the street. So there's various things within a person's life, various opportunities or times in their life where a person may have got upon their neck, you know, the haqq, the right of another human being. It could be that I was driving one day and I hit someone's car with my car and I damaged their wing mirror and I drove off. Or I bumped into someone's car in the car park here and you know, I saw that no one saw, I've damaged their car, so I've driven off. That I need to repay. If I don't know the person specifically, I don't know, you know, sometimes you have weddings, people are here from out of town, I'm here, I park my car, I scrape someone's bumper, quickly go and park it elsewhere, try and forget about it, now the person's gone, I don't know who that person was, it was dark, I didn't see what type of car it was, so now I have to estimate the Radd al-Madhalim, I go and I give that amount to a poor person. But when I don't do the Radd al-Madhalim, that brings regret. Especially in the akhirah, because haqqun nas is that thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not forgive. So I go and find a poor person, I pay it. It can't be anyone that receives nafaqa or support from me, so i.e. a wife, parents or children. It has to be outside of that immediate family that a person has. So the next thing that the Imam says is Radd al-Madhalim, a person that doesn't pay the dues, that which they owe. The next thing that the Imam says that causes regret within a person, he says not giving his zakat or his charitable dues, and now he's dying. You know, now he's reached the point of death. He in his life never paid his zakat, never paid his khums. All those charitable dues that a person had, he hasn't paid them. And so now there's adhab waiting for him. The moment he closes his eyes to the mortal realm and enters the realm of the barzakh, there's adhab waiting for him. Because he hasn't done the zakat, he hasn't paid his khums. He says that will bring regret within a person, because they haven't paid their dues. And then the last thing the Imam He says, قتل نفسي التي حرم الله, killing of an individual that Allah has made haram. And then the Imam, he gives an example. He says, قال عز وجل في قصة قابيل حين قتل أخاه هابيل. Says, as is seen in the story of Qabil and Habil, when Qabil kills his brother, and he doesn't know what to do with the body. So he sees the crows, Allah sends the crows, shows him how the crow is burying, and so he buries the body of his brother. But then the Quran says, the next day, فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ النَّادِمِينَ. He woke up being regretful for the actions that he had committed. So here the Imam is saying the individual that kills an innocent person will be filled with regret. Either internally, the person will be filled with regret, or they will be forced to feel regret from an external source. Post Karbala, you see it happening. Those individuals that took part in the event of Karbala, that took part in the killing of Sayyid al-Shahadat, individuals like Mukhtar came and made them regret. It took revenge upon those individuals. But more important are those of us that stayed, or those of them that stayed quiet at that time. And this relates more to us as well. You know, we could turn around and say, well, I didn't kill anyone, so this part doesn't apply to me. No. See, there is an aspect that does apply to us. And it's more important. It's those individuals that stayed quiet in the face of the killing. Those individuals that didn't raise a voice. Remember, the narrations say that an individual that is quiet in the face of sin is equal to that sin, is party to that very same sin. When we look at the story of the she-camel of Nabi Saleh, someone comes to the Imam and says, Yabna Rasulullah, who killed the she-camel of Saleh? Imam says it was one man in the tribe of Nabi Saleh that came and killed him. Says, but Yabna Rasulullah, why is it in Surah Al-Shams and other places in the Holy Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about the story of the she-camel of Nabi Saleh, He says, فَعَكَرُوهَا, they killed her. The Imam Ma'soom says, because it was one person that killed the she-camel of Saleh, but the rest of the community stayed quiet in the face of the sin. So Allah says, فَعَكَرُوهَا, they killed her. فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنْبِهِمْ وَسَوَّاهَا. That Allah wiped out the whole nation as a result of their staying quiet in the face of what happened. Post Karbala, you have those that formed the Tawabin in Kufa. The Tawabin are those individuals who had given bay'ah to Muslim ibn Aqil, had written letters to Sayyid al-Shahadat. Muslim comes, he writes, they come, they give bay'ah to Muslim, but the moment that Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad comes in, they all take a back step. People like Sulaiman Sarad al-Khudai, he's one of the people that writes a letter to Sayyid al-Shahadat. But now post Karbala, they stay quiet during the Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad's time, but now when they hear what happened in Karbala, they come out crying, and so now they're regretful because they have, they know what they've done. And Sayyidah Zainab, she refers to it when she does her khutbah in Kufa. She says, are you now crying? He says, yes. You, by Allah, should cry. You should laugh less. You should cry more. He says, because that shame that you have on you, that disgrace that you have on you, you will never be able to wash it away. You're stuck with it. So staying quiet in the face of sin happening around us will cause regret as well. There's the killing of innocent children in Yemen and all these different places. I stay quiet, nothing to do with me. A person will then also be regretful. So 5 things that Imam Sajjad says that bring regret in the life of a person. The first is killing an innocent person. Second thing is rejoining family ties. Not praying salah at its time such that it becomes qada. Not leaving a will and not paying al-zakat and charitable dues. As all of these will bring nadam, will bring sadness, a regret within a person in the dunya and in the akhirah. Killing an innocent person. Those that were there in Karbala, Mukhtar made them regret. Those that were there in Karbala, Mukhtar asked them one by one, what is it that you did? And each individual that tells exactly what it is that they did in Karbala, it brings tears to the eyes. There were those that were killed during the battle. Those are the shuhada during the battle. There are 3 types of shuhada in Karbala. Those that were killed during the battle. People like Abis ibn Shabib al-Shakiri, Habib ibn Madahir, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Then there are individuals that were killed just after the battle. Sayyid al-Shuhada has been murdered. People like Hafhaf ibn Muhannad. Hafhaf ibn Muhannad comes just after Asr Ashur, coming to help Imam Hussein, realizes Imam's been killed, takes part in a small battle against the army of Ibn Ziyad, and he's made shaheed there. Then there are the shuhada that happen after the sun has set. The children of Bani Hashim. Those children that were crushed under the galloping horses as they began to loot the daughters of Ali and Zahra. And then there are those who made their way from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham, with the hope of returning home, but were never able to leave Sham. Tonight is the night where we remember that 4-year-old daughter of Abdullah. I don't know who has young daughters at home, because only those that have those young children, young daughters at home, they'll be able to relate more so with the musibah of this young daughter of Abdullah. I often think that where do I start the musibah of this girl? What masa'ib do I recite of hers? Do I talk about how I can't find anywhere in history where she actually drank any water? From Sham Ghariban, when the water was brought towards Ali Muhammad and they bring it to her and they say, Sakina, you drink. She takes that water, she runs towards the battlefield. They call to her, say, Sakina, where are you going? Says, Auntie, you said the youngest must drink first. My brother Ali Asghar is still thirsty. Or along the way when she looks towards the army of Shimar and sees them drinking, and he looks towards it and says, do you want this water? She says, yes, I'm thirsty. He takes the water, he feeds all of his army, then looks towards her and says, are you still thirsty? She says, yes, give me just a glass of water. He opens it and pours the water on the ground. The narrations say that the daughter of Abu Abdullah, she ran towards that wet ground and she placed her face on the wet ground. Or during the deserts, as they were going towards Sham, and every time water would come, she'd run towards her brother Sayyid Sajjad, who was shackled in chains, and would begin pouring water over the chains of her brother, saying, no, the chains of my brother are heating under the sun. She reaches Kufa, they bring her water, her aunt stops her, says, no, sadaqah is haram upon us. Sakina, ask for this lady's dua first before you drink. Like this, towards Sham, this child reaches. All the way looking at the head of her father on a spear. Maybe turning to her auntie and saying, "Auntie, wherever I have heard of Quran, those that recite Quran, people respect them, auntie. But auntie, is my father not reciting Quran on the spear? Then why are they throwing stones at the head of my father?" Then that night comes in Sham. Tired from the journey, she sees in her dream Aba Abdullah. Young child, 4 years old. She wakes up crying. All the women surround her. She says, "I saw my father just now. Where has my father gone? I just saw him." They tell her, "Sakina, you were dreaming." She says, "No, I saw my father, a young child." She's screaming, crying. All of the women around her, seeing the state of her, they too begin to remember about Abdullah. They begin crying as well. They say that Yazid was informed that the daughter of Abu Abdullah and the women are crying. Says, "Why is it she's crying?" Said, "She's crying for her father." They say that he said, "Take the head, give it to her." This wasn't an act of mercy from Yazid. No, this was another way that he could hurt the hearts of the daughters of Ali and Zahra. There is no mercy in sending a severed head towards a child. He sends the head in order to tease them, in order to oppress them even more. When this child sees a head, it says she sees a tray coming with a cover on top. She turns to her auntie Zainab. She says, "Oh auntie, I'm not hungry. I don't want to eat. Auntie, I want my father." They pull away the cloth. She sees the head of Abu Abdullah in front of her. She runs towards the head of Abu Abdullah. A young girl, for so long she's seen her father's head on a spear, wants to hold it, wants to speak to her father. Every time she cries, she's slapped. Now her father's head in front of her. The narration says she ran towards the head of Abu Abdullah. She picks up the head. She begins to recite a marthiyah. "Abata man alladhi aytamani ala sighri sinni. Abata man alladhi qata'a waridak." Father, tell me who orphaned me at such a young age. Father, tell me who cut the veins of your neck. Father, tell me who covered your face and your beard in your blood. Abata laytani kuntu ولم أرى رأسك هكذا. Father, how I wish I was blind today, that I would not have seen your head in such a state. They say she lays down. She places her lips on the lips of her father. She begins to tell him everything that has happened. Father, every time we would cry for you, they would slap us. Father, every time we would lag behind, they would slap us. Father, no one was slapped more than our auntie Zainab, because every time they wanted to slap us, our auntie Zainab would stand in the way and say, "Don't slap the children of Hussein, slap Zainab instead." They say she carries on speaking. A short while later, a voice is heard from the head. "Ilayya, ilayya, fa'ana laki bil-intidhar." "Oh, come to me, for I'm waiting for you." The child falls silent. Imam as-Sajjad comes towards his sister, sees the head of his father on one side, his sister lying on the other. He goes to wake up his sister, but the moment Sajjad's hand touches Sakina's body, they say Sajjad called out, "Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un." "Oh, Auntie Zainab, my sister has left this world." But this child's musibah doesn't end there. How is it that Sajjad will bury his sister? Sajjad's hands are tied. This child has just one cloth on her body. How is it Sajjad will bury her inside of this prison? Years go by and an alim sees in his dream, Sayyida Sakina is coming, saying, "Oh alim, my grave is filling with water. Move my body. 2 days, 3 days, he sees the dream. Eventually he realizes that this is a message that I have to act upon. He gathers some women. They go and he sends his own daughters as well. Tells them, go and excavate the grave of the daughter of Hussein and move her body. They go, they excavate the grave, they move the body of Sayyida Sakina, and they rebury her. When these daughters return, they have tears in their eyes. You want to know the madhlumiyat of Sajjad? You want to know the madhlumiyat of Sakina? These two girls, they return, they begin crying, tears in their eyes. They say, oh Father, you told us Sakina was madhluma. You told us she had been oppressed. Father, you told us she was alone. Father, you told us all of these dhulm that happened to her. But Father, you never told us that when they buried her, her ropes were still tied to her body. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. ماتم حسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. آخری رات سکینہ کی، آخری رات سکینہ کی، ہائے 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 میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی، میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی، ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا سینے پہ سلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا سینے پہ سلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا. کہتی ہوں کہ چہرہ ہی دکھا جائیے بابا، مرنے سے میرے پہلے ہی آ جائیے بابا، پہلو میں چھپانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی، ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا سینے پہ سلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا. بابا میرے بچپن کا تقاضا تو نہیں تھا، خوابوں میں کھلونے تھے، جنازہ تو نہیں تھا، گودی میں کھلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی، ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا سینے پہ سلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا. بابا میرے زخموں کی دوا کون کرے گا، اب جان سکینہ کو بھلا کون کہے گا، پہلو میں چھپانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی، ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا سینے پہ سلانے کو، کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا. زندہ کی اندھیروں میں صلح کیوں نہیں دیتے؟ بابا مجھے مرنے کی دعا کیوں نہیں دیتے؟ میں لوری سنانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، سینے پہ سلانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا۔ مر جاؤں اگر بابا تیرا شام ہو آنا، بیمار اکیلا ہے جنازے کو اٹھانا، گودی میں اٹھانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، سینے پہ سلانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا۔ کوئی بھی نہیں آنسو میرے پہنچنے والا، سر پہ نہیں ہاتھوں کو کوئی پھیرنے والا، باہوں میں چھپانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، میں خاک پا سو جاؤں گی ہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، سینے پہ سلانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، سینے پہ سلانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا، سینے پہ سلانے کو کہاں کہتی ہوں بابا۔ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین۔ سکینہ 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 شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، جدائی باپ کے سینے، جدائی باپ کے سینے کہ مجھ کو کھا گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، کفس غربت اداسی شمر کا ڈر پیاس کی شدت، کفس غربت اداسی شمر کا ڈر پیاس کی شدت، ستم اتنے ہوئے معصوم کو موت آ گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں، سکینہ شام میں مر کر
یہی سمجھا گئی لوگوں،
وہ ماں جو دھوپ میں اکثر علی اصغر کو روتی تھی، وہ ماں جو دھوپ میں اکثر علی اصغر کو روتی تھی، سکینہ کی قضا اس پر قیامت ڈا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں
مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔
بندے ہاتھوں پہ ایک بیمار لایا بہن کی میت، بندے ہاتھوں پہ ایک بیمار لایا بہن کی میت، یہ اولاد نبی پر کیسی غربت چھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں
مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔
بندے بہن کی لاش ہاتھوں پہ لیے سجاد کہتے تھے، بہن کی لاش ہاتھوں پہ لیے سجاد کہتے تھے، گلستان امامت کی کلی مرجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ
شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔
پدر کی خوبری گردن پہ بچی نے جو لب رکھے، پدر کی خوبری گردن پہ بچی نے جو لب رکھے، یہ منظر دیکھ کر تو خود قضا گھبرا گئی لوگو، سکینہ
شام
میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو،
سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔
چچا بابا برادر سب کے سب تو کربلا سوئے، چچا بابا برادر سب کے سب تو کربلا سوئے، سکینہ کو نہ جانے شام کیسے ڈا گئی لوگو،
سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔
جدائی باپ کے سینے، جدائی باپ کے سینے کی مجھ کو کھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ
شام
میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو، سکینہ شام میں مر کر یہی سمجھا گئی لوگو۔ الفاتحہ۔
زیارت عاشورہ۔ اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد، اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد، اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد۔ بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ السلام علیک یا ابا عبداللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن رسول اللہ، السلام علیک یا ابن امیر المؤمنین وابن سید الوصین، السلام علیک یا ابن فاطمة الزہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین، السلام علیک یا ثار اللہ وابن ثارہ والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت وعظمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعظمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات. فلعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي رتبكم الله فيها. ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله الممهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشياعهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاطبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت وتهيأت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب ثارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونصب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس الظلم والجور عليكم. وأبرأ إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أسس أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشياعكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشياعهم وأوليائهم. يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة. وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود الذي لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب ثاري مع إمام مهدي ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبالشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد، ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية، وابن آكلة الأكباد اللعين ابن اللعين، على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وقف فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية بن أبي سفيان ويزيد بن معاوية، عليهم منك اللعنة أبد الآبدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم، وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد، وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين عليه السلام وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني، وابدأ به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد بن معاوية خامسا، ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. سجود. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم، الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود، وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله الحسين، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد النقي الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب الأسر والزمان. سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه عرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الفاتحة.